Season 2 of Uzak Şehir is finally here, and I'm so excited to break down episode 29 of this series with you. This hit Turkish drama, also known by its English title Far City, was my favorite Disney of this past year, and I expect it will remain at the top of my watch list for this new season. Now, if you haven't seen my season 1 review, I'll link it below so you can check out my full thoughts on what worked and didn't work from last season. All right, let's dive into the season 2 premiere. Episode 29 picks up right where we left off, with Cihan racing to the airport in a last-ditch effort to stop Alya from leaving. He catches her just in time and confesses his love before pulling her into a kiss. It's a pivotal, emotional moment, and after he pulls away, Cihan immediately apologizes for being impulsive. But it's clear from Alya's expression that she's not upset. In fact, she's touched by his honesty and relieved to hear him say the words out loud. Still, Alya is worried about Minay and the growing threat of Etchmel, especially where Denise is concerned. But Cihan reassures her that he won't let anything happen to Denise and pleads with her to stay, telling her that they can face whatever comes next together. And in a sweet twist of fate, Alya realizes that their conversation lasted so long that she's missed her flight. She smiles, acknowledging that this delay and this moment with Cihan may have been meant to be. While she doesn't reciprocate and say the words "I love you" to Cihan just yet, it's obvious that she's no longer running. She's choosing to stay by his side, and she's finally open to the possibility of building a real marriage with Cihan. As Cihan, Alya, and Denise walk out of the airport together, they run into Kaya, Kadir, and Muzaffer. And Kaya is relieved to see Alya and Denise. It's a heartfelt moment from him, and honestly, I've grown to really appreciate Kaya. It would have been so easy for the show to paint him as just the typical hot-headed younger brother. But instead, Kaya has evolved into someone with genuine emotional depth, and his support and bond with Alya feels sincere. We then cut to Minay, who's clearly basking in what she sees as her triumph. She's settling into the mansion and clearly pleased with herself for having pushed Alya out, but her smugness doesn't last long. Her victory is cut short when Cihan and Alya return to the mansion together. Cihan wastes no time confronting Minay. He tells her flat out that he's not afraid of her exposing the truth about Etchmel being Braun's father. And, more importantly, he boldly declares to Minay and Sadakat that he's in love with Alya. Minay is stunned, and when she asks Cihan if Alya feels the same, Alya steps forward, takes Cihan's hand, and says she's in love with him too. It's the first time she's actually said the words out loud, and the fact that she does it publicly in front of the two women who've been the biggest obstacles in their relationship makes the moment feel even more powerful. The news hits Minay like a ton of bricks. On her way out of the mansion, she collapses from the shock. Cihan carries her back to her own house, and Alya, ever the caretaker, checks on her and confirms that her pregnancy isn't in immediate danger, but she urges Minay to stay in bed and rest. On the way home, the tension in the car is palpable. Sadakat wastes no time lashing out at both Cihan and Alya. She accuses them of betraying Baran by turning their strategic marriage into a real romantic relationship, and it's a sentiment she repeats throughout the episode. And at this point, I'm really annoyed, though not surprised, that Sadakat remains as cruel and hypocritical as ever. Let's not forget, she was the one who pushed for this marriage in the first place, even before knowing it was Braun's dying wish. She repeatedly told Alya it was her duty to serve her husband, even pressuring her to bear Cihan a child early in their marriage. Now suddenly she's weaponizing morality to condemn the very relationship she helped orchestrate. Cihan has clearly had enough. And it's refreshing to see him standing up to Sadakat and pushing against her outbursts, unlike last season where he often seemed too passive. We then shift to Shaheen and Nare, who are returning home after secretly eloping in the previous episode. As soon as they arrive, the fallout begins. Fidan, Shaheen's overbearing mother, instantly recognizes the shift in the relationship just by seeing them holding hands. And when Shaheen confirms that Nare is now his wife, Fidan explodes. She screams at him to divorce Nare and demands that he take her back to her family. At this point, I'm convinced that Fidan and Sadakat are in a silent competition for who could be the worst mother-in-law. But for now, Sadakat still holds the crown. Shaheen insists that Nare is his wife and she's staying, but what he doesn't yet know is that Etchmel has just been released from prison. When Etchmel walks in, Nare and Shaheen are visibly stunned. Surprisingly, Etchmel immediately gives his blessing to their marriage, but it's obvious this approval comes with strings. His motives aren't loving or pure, they're strategic. And when Etchmel demands that Nare kiss his hand, you can see how deeply conflicted Nare is. She's trembling as she lowers her head to kiss the hand of a man who's not only her family's sworn enemy, but also had abandoned her mother while she was pregnant. But Narey knew what she was signing up for when she married Shaheen. Aligning herself with his family was always going to require compromises, and kissing Echmel's hand was just the first of many sacrifices. After Shaheen and Narey leave to break the news of their marriage to Sadakat, Zerrin confronts Echmel and asks if he would have been so welcoming if Kaya had eloped with her, just as he embraced Narey. After all, both Kaya and Narey are children of Sadakat. Echmel gives a typical patriarchal response and tells Zerrin that Kaya, as a man, would never be accepted into their family. As a woman, Narey is joining their family to bear Shaheen's children and continue their lineage, whereas Zerrin would be leaving Echmel's control to help Kaya carry on his lineage. And you could feel Zerrin's anger in this moment. She's happy for her brother, but she's also furious watching Echmel so easily embrace Narey, while she herself was forced to give up her love for Kaya and marry a man she despises. It's a frustrating double standard. We then shift back to the Albora mansion, where Cihan, Alya, and Sadakat return, only to find Shaheen and Narey already there waiting for them. Of course, Cihan and Alya are already aware of their secret marriage, but when Sadakat sees them together, she reacts just about as well as you'd expect. She screams at Narey to divorce Shaheen and leave him immediately. But when Narey turns to Cihan for his support, he doesn't give her the blessing she was hoping for. Shaheen assures Cihan that he will completely give up his claim to be the head of the Albora tribe if Cihan were to accept his marriage to Narey. However, Cihan shocks everyone by saying he does not support their marriage and wants them to separate. When Narey demands to know why, Cihan drops a bombshell. He believes Echmel was the one responsible for Braun's death. This is news to everyone, including Sadakat. Cihan explains that the man they believed to be Hamada was an imposter. The trail they followed to find Hamada last season was just a setup orchestrated by Echmel to frame Nadim, Demir's father, for Braun's murder. Alya confirms that she later saw the real Hamada alive and well after the fake Hamada had died, but before Cihan could confront him, the real Hamada was killed. Despite this revelation, the lack of concrete proof made Shaheen skeptical of their claim that Echmel was responsible for Braun's death. So, Shaheen takes Narey's hand and prepares to leave the mansion. At the gates, Cihan and Sadakat try to stop them from leaving, and Cihan pleads with Narey to stay with them. However, Narey chooses to leave with Shaheen, and that's when Cihan coldly tells Narey that she's dead to him and no longer part of the family. When Narey tries to approach him, hoping for even a sliver of understanding, Cihan shuts her down completely. That moment was heartbreaking. You could see the pain in Narey's eyes, and it was gut-wrenching to watch. But honestly, I understood Narey's decision. She's been down this road before. She gave up Shaheen once, forced herself into a loveless marriage, and suffered endlessly for it. That sacrifice didn't earn Sadakat's respect. It also didn't bring peace to her family. It didn't accomplish anything for anyone other than to make her and Shaheen miserable. So this time, she's choosing her love for Shaheen. And I was proud of the way she stood her ground against her family, even in the face of so much judgment and pain. Back at the mansion, we see Cihan, Alya, Sadakat, and Kaya discussing the Echmel situation. But it doesn't take long for Sadakat to shift the focus back to Cihan and Alya's relationship. She accuses them once again of betraying Braun, doubling down on the idea that their marriage becoming real somehow dishonors Braun's memory. But Cihan doesn't let her accusations slide. He tells her firmly that love isn't something you can control, and that his feelings for Alya are not a betrayal of Braun. Loving Alya is a choice he's making freely and without shame. Now, what I find particularly interesting is the parallel between Cihan and Narey in this episode. Both of them are now openly defying Sadakat and standing up for their love. In Cihan's case, he gave up on his love for Miriam in the past due to family pressure and Sadakat's manipulation, and he's not making that mistake again with Alya. When Cihan storms out of the room, he finds Alya on the balcony, and we get this beautifully tender moment. She rests her chin on his shoulder and wraps her arms around him from behind. He doesn't say a word, but she knows exactly what he's feeling. The weight of Sadakat's judgment and the pain of turning his back on Narey is emotionally exhausting. And that simple gesture of comfort from Alya says everything. It signals a new level of physical affection and closeness that now exists between them. And it's great to see. Meanwhile, over at Echmel's estate, Shaheen and Narey confront him directly about his alleged involvement in Braun's death. Echmel, of course, denies everything. And because there's still no hard evidence, Shaheen has little choice but to take him at his word, though it's obvious that Narey remains deeply suspicious. Things get even more interesting when Demir overhears the entire exchange. He learns that his father, Nadim, may have been framed by Echmel, and while he doesn't fully react in the moment, You can see the doubt creep in. He warns Echmel that if he's lying, there will be consequences. Unfortunately, later in the episode, we see Demir reject Cihan's offer to work together and find out who really framed Nadim. He's still clinging to that one-dimensional hatred of Cihan, and honestly, it's getting stale. I hope the writers give him a more layered arc this season. Now, back to Nare. After Echmel once again shifts the blame onto Cihan, she storms out of the house. She's clearly torn to pieces. She's caught between her family and the man she loves, and now she's living under the roof of the very man who's caused her family so much pain. It's a lot to deal with. Shaheen chases after her, and the two end up in a heated argument about Echmel. Shaheen still believes in his father's innocence, while Nare is convinced he's lying, and they quickly start to compare who has the worst parent. But ultimately, they decide not to let their families come between them, especially on their wedding day, and Shaheen takes Nare to a hotel to spend their long-awaited wedding night. Back at the Albora mansion, we get a much-needed moment of lightness. Alya invites Cihan to join her and Denise for dinner, and he reaches for her hand as they walk down to the kitchen, just like a true couple. And it was cute seeing Kaya and the others react to their hand-holding. Quick side note, it looks like the actress playing Pakise's mother has been recast this season. I almost didn't catch it since she had such a small role in the episode. But anyway, it wasn't just Alya and Cihan having a fun evening. Over at the Echmel estate, we see Fidan preparing for a romantic night, dressed in a silky black nightgown with her hair loose. She was obviously hoping to rekindle some intimacy now that Echmel is out of prison. But to her surprise, Echmel barely acknowledges her and turns his back to go to sleep. And the disappointment on Fidan's face said it all. This unexpected coldness from Echmel could be the beginning of something deeper, and it'll be interesting to see how this tension plays out. Back at the Albora mansion, we see Cihan nervously waiting for Alya to join him in their bedroom. It's their first night sharing a room since confessing their feelings, and the air between them is thick with both excitement and uncertainty. They've crossed a major emotional threshold, but the physical one still feels daunting, especially considering how complicated their journey has been. But they talk it out, and it's clear neither of them is ready to take that next step. And I really appreciated how the show didn't rush this moment. Alya and Cihan both reflect on how far they've come, how their relationship began with a forced marriage, how it took Alya months just to move from a chair to the bed, and how the guilt over Baran still lingers between them. So they decide to take things slow and continue to sleep separately. Before turning in for the night, Cihan finally admits to Alya that his emotional plea in the courtroom last season, when he tried to stop their divorce, was completely genuine. It wasn't just a legal tactic. His love declaration came from the heart. And in response, Alya smiles at him and tells him that she knew he was lying when he claimed it was just a legal strategy. Now, I have to say, I really enjoyed how strong the communication is between Cihan and Alya in these scenes. They're not just declaring their love, they're also being vulnerable and honest with each other about their fears, insecurities, and emotional scars. That's why the relationship feels so grounded. Later that night, we see Cihan's emotional turmoil manifest in a nightmare. He dreams that he kills Baran in a struggle for Alya. And it's a visceral reminder that even though they're moving forward, Cihan's sense of guilt over betraying Baran is still an obstacle in their relationship. Thankfully, Alya wakes him up and assures him that loving each other doesn't mean they've forgotten Baran. It just means they're choosing life and starting over. And then comes one of the most touching moments of the episode. Cihan tells her that he's exhausted from carrying everyone else's burdens, and Alya is the only person who truly sees him and cares about his pain. He assures her that just because he isn't ready for physical intimacy doesn't mean he doesn't love her with all his heart. And when Alya tells him that loving someone isn't a crime and that she loves him without fear, it's just beautiful. These scenes are where the writing on the show truly shines. The emotional intelligence, the nuance, and the mutual respect between Cihan and Alya is what makes their love story feel so authentic and so earned. The next morning, we see Cihan visiting Baran's grave, where he confesses his love for Alya and asks Baran for forgiveness. It's clear that even with everything that's happened, Cihan still seeks Baran's blessing to move forward with his life. Just as he's about to leave the cemetery, Cihan sees a woman placing flowers on Baran's grave. But before Cihan can approach her to ask who she is, she runs away. Meanwhile, Sadakat is up to her usual scheming. She storms into Minay's home, demanding the documents that prove Echmel is Baran's biological father. Minay gets angry and locks herself in the bathroom to try and call Echmel, but Sadakat's henchmen force their way in before she can reveal Sadakat's secrets. Then, Sadakat does something truly horrifying. She pulls out her phone, shows Minay a photo of her daughter, and threatens the girl's life if Minay dares to speak a word to Echmel. It's a chilling moment and a new low, even for Sadakat. And before leaving, Sadakat posts her goons outside the house to keep Minay locked inside. Later that day, Shaheen and Narey return home after their wedding night, and Echmel wastes no time asserting his dominance. He demands that both of them join him in Alvara Square, where the tribe will publicly kiss his hand as a show of loyalty, essentially crowning him as the tribe's true leader. Of course, this is a direct challenge to Cihan's authority, and Echmel doesn't just want Shaheen by his side, he wants Narey there too. It's a calculated move to humiliate Cihan and make it clear that Narey, Sadakat's daughter, now belongs to his house. Narey, understandably, doesn't want to go. The last thing she wants is to publicly stand against her brother. But Shaheen pressures her to go, insisting that she support him as his wife. And honestly, this rubbed me the wrong way. Shaheen, who has been so sympathetic and supportive in the past, suddenly seems blind to both Echmel's manipulation and the emotional weight Narey is carrying. He doesn't fully grasp what he's asking of her. Still, Narey agrees to join them. And of course, after they arrive in Alvara Square, Cihan, Sadakat, and Kaya show up to spoil Echmel's party. Cihan addresses the crowd and calls out Echmel's display for what it is, nothing more than an ego trip. He reminds the tribe that true leadership doesn't require people to bow down and kiss hands. And Echmel, clearly threatened, signals his men to pull their guns on Cihan. But Shaheen steps in and diffuses the standoff, urging everyone to lower their weapons. Cihan, refusing to escalate the violence, tells the crowd to disperse. And just like that, Cihan takes back control of the moment. It's a solid win for him, at least for now. But the drama doesn't end there. Sadakat, never one to stay silent, confronts Echmel and hurls accusations his way. And what follows is an explosive shouting match, with Echmel cruelly declaring that Narey will now bear his grandchildren and carry on his lineage, twisting the knife in Sadakat's pride and Cihan's heart. This was Echmel's plan all along. By embracing Narey, he didn't just gain a daughter-in-law, he gained a powerful weapon to strike back at Sadakat. Narey, understandably horrified by what she's just heard, collapses in front of everyone. But it was really hard for me to watch the cold, detached expression on Cihan's face when looking at Narey. He doesn't bother to rush to her side. He didn't even flinch. And honestly, I really want to see these two reconcile soon. I miss their sibling bond. On his drive home, Cihan spots the mysterious woman who had placed flowers on Baran's grave. He immediately pulls over and approaches her, and she shocks Cihan by revealing that she's the wife of the man in the grave. Now, she doesn't name Baran explicitly, but if she is in fact Baran's secret wife, then it's strange that Baran would hide her from Cihan and not at least try to have Cihan look out for her after he abandoned the woman and fled Turkey. Either Baran is incredibly selfish, which isn't hard to believe, or this is a major plot hole. Unfortunately, we don't get much more information from this mystery woman. Their conversation is cut short when Alya calls Cihan, urging him to return home immediately. It turns out Minay had managed to escape her imprisonment by deceiving Sadakat's guards, and she drove straight to the Alvara mansion to confront Cihan. When Cihan arrives home, Minay accuses Sadakat of threatening her daughter's safety, and Cihan promises her that no harm will ever come to her daughter. But it's clear Cihan's grown tired of Minay constantly dangling the threat of Echmel like a sword over everyone's heads. Sadakat shows up too, trying to justify threatening a little girl, which infuriates Minay. When Alya urges Minay to calm down for the sake of her pregnancy, Minay lashes out at her, blaming Alya for stealing what she believes is rightfully hers. When Minay screams that she hates Alya, Cihan grabs Minay by the arm and starts pulling her towards the car, telling her he doesn't care what she tells Echmel, and will prove it by driving her to Echmel's house himself. Cihan brushes off Alya and Sadakat's protests and drives off with Minay. So, Alya then follows them in Minay's car. When Cihan and Minay arrive in front of Echmel's house, Cihan gives her a harsh choice. Either tell Echmel the truth about Baran and suffer his wrath, or hand over the documents to him and stay silent. However, Minay slowly starts walking towards Echmel's door, but she was clearly hesitating. Just at that moment, Alya arrives and pleads with Minay to not go to Echmel. However, Alya's presence triggers Minay's rage, and Minay quickly gets in her car and tries to run Alya over. But Cihan reacts fast, ramming his own car into Minay's to stop her from hitting Alya. When Cihan gets out of his car to check on Alya, we see Minay badly injured in her car, but the episode ends before we know whether she and her baby are okay. But based on the trailers for the next episode, it looks like Minay will lose the baby. And honestly, I couldn't be more thrilled. This pregnant mistress subplot has dragged on for far too long, and I don't want this trope to continue in season 2. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I've missed seeing Alya and Cihan on my screen, and the season 2 premiere delivered the same magnetic chemistry that made them my favorite pairing last season. And at the same time, this episode also gave us a fresh new dynamic between them since their feelings are now out in the open. And I'm excited to see how they navigate this new chapter of their relationship, especially as they work through the guilt they still carry over Baran. That said, I really hope it doesn't take another 28 episodes for them to share a bed. The emotional intimacy is definitely there between them, and now it's time to see their physical intimacy catch up. As for what's coming next, the big question on my mind is what the fallout will be from Minay potentially revealing to Etchmel that he's Baran's father. The show has been building towards this reveal for a while now, and I'm curious to see how Etchmel reacts and what that means for Denise. If Minay ends up losing the baby, then her storyline will be on its last legs, and I wouldn't be mad if her character exits the show soon after. At this point, she's mostly being used to stir up drama, and I'd love to see the writers move on to fresher storylines and new antagonists. And speaking of new characters, I have a strong feeling that Miriam's introduction isn't far off. With Minay likely on her way out, that would be the perfect time to bring Miriam into the picture. We also got a brief glimpse of Kaya's fiancé, Ipek, in this episode. She had only one scene, just long enough to make Zarin miserable, but I'm curious to see what triggers the inevitable drama between her, Kaya, and Zarin. And getting early psycho-stalker vibes from Ipek, and you know that usually means trouble. And finally, the mysterious woman who claimed to be Baran's wife is still looming. If that's true, this could be a turning point for Cihan and Alya, especially if it allows them to finally release the guilt that's been holding them back. But we'll have to wait and see how this storyline unfolds. So, those are my thoughts on episode 29 of Uzak Şehir. Did the season 2 premiere hook you as well? Or are you still waiting for the story to heat up? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this review, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming Turkish drama breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.